Let's get it. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. Hopefully you guys are having a phenomenal Friday. I know it's a late night episode this time around. It's about 12:30 a.m. my time. I'm not sure what time it is where you're tuning in on, but we got audio, so we're good to go. Hopefully you guys have had a great week so far, and with it now being Friday, if you guys are tuning in live, appreciate y'all for that. If you guys are going to tune in later on after the show is done, I appreciate y'all for tuning in as well. Hopefully you guys are off to a phenomenal Friday if that is the case. Now, there is a lot to get into on tonight's show. Now, I was live on Johnny's show the other day, so you guys can check that out. We had the collab going down there, so you can check that out on my YouTube channel. I gave a lot of thoughts on things I'm going to be discussing today, but you're going to hear my thoughts entirely on a lot of things. We had a Wednesday this week, which included a lot of fight cards, a Japan, an Australia, and a Matchroom card going down in the UK. On top of that, tonight we had a ProBox TV card, breaking that down as well for you guys. And then we're going to transition into a fight preview. Craig Richards, Azeez goes down on Saturday. But on top of that, of course, Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. I'll be giving you guys my thoughts on that one as well. And then boxing news. Obviously, some of the biggest news we've had in a very long time in boxing. Terence "Bud" Crawford is no longer an active fighter. I'll be giving you guys my thoughts on that today. And much more boxing news as well. But before we transition into the fight recap that went down so far this week of fights, make sure to smash that like button on YouTube. I greatly appreciate that. It helps out with the show a lot. If you guys are tuning in on, X or on Facebook, which is now live on Facebook. If you guys do not know that, yes, you guys can check out the show on Facebook. Make sure to hit that like button, the share button, comment, whatever the case may be. I appreciate y'all for that. And if you guys have any thoughts, make sure to place it in the chat. Your comment will come up on the screen, and we'll go back and forth discussing those chats as well. So, lots to get into tonight's show. Sit back, enjoy, and let's get right to it now. All right, we're going to kick it off with Japan because Wednesday morning, my time at least, it was the Japan fight card going down. Lots of good fights went down, but how do I not start the show off other than talking about the main event? Seiya Tsutsumi, he returns from his eye injury to fight Nonito Donaire, and guess what? He wins via split decision, 112, 116, 115, 113, and then 117, 111. Now, Seiya Tsutsumi, he suffered a broken nose in his WBA bantamweight title defense against Nonito Donaire yesterday. So, a lot of things happen in this fight right now, but it was a very good fight. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit more details. Actually, I'll do wait for that portion until after I break this fight down for you guys. I thought this fight was incredible. In fact, I'm going to even go as far as to say this. What a fight. Now, we are in the back end of the year, and so we're in this point of the year where we start talking about, was it fight of the year, and this, that, and the third. I get it. It probably isn't actually in the top 5 or so of fight of the year, but this fight was phenomenal. And I think you have to add in this other aspect. Nonito Donaire, he's in his is in his early 40s at this point in time, excuse me. And he went to war that entire fight. I was absolutely impressed, baffled by the way Nonito Donaire performed in this fight. The Filipino Flash did his job in that ring. Now, I did have Seiya Tsutsumi win this fight. I think he rightfully so did win this fight. But how do I not just give hats off to Donaire? I mean, he stood in that pocket. He exchanged. He went to war that entire fight. Both guys did so, and I was phenomenal. This fight was great, a very entertaining, very fun fight to watch. I give hats off to both these men. Now, I want to expand upon this, though, and I want to talk about Seiya Tsutsumi. This is a man, now, I know our audience is primarily based in America, and it's tough to watch Japanese fighters because of time zone. Seiya Tsutsumi is a man that deserves more credit and respect. If you don't know him, go back and watch his fight against Donaire. Go back and watch his previous fights because this is a man that goes to war. He was on an upward trajectory, had the eye injury, obviously became champion recess, now got his belt position back again. But this is a man who I think is phenomenal. He is going to be a problem for a long time. When you look at his resume at his age already, this is a man who's going to be a problem. I think he's just 28 years of age. He's going to be a problem for a long time. Keep your eye on Seiya Tsutsumi. But this fight did have a lot of different stipulations in it. I'm going to break that down for you guys now in this point. Tsutsumi, he said he intends to return to the ring on the Inoue Nakatani undercard. There it goes. We once again have a lot more clarity that fight's going to happen if both guys win next Saturday. But let me expand upon this. He wants to return the undercard against Kazuto Ioka, stating, that's the person I want to fight most is Ioka. It's a whole different level of excitement. But here's the interesting position, though. He has to fight Antonio Vargas. Antonio Vargas was the man that became the world champion. And when the winner of this fight came to fruition, they said you have 120 days to make the fight happen for the WBA belt. So we'll see what happens here. But essentially it's down to Antonio Vargas or going out there and fighting Kazuto Ioka. I think both fights would be swell. I'd like to see both those fights. And honestly, I think Tsutsumi is the type of guy that you need to place on the undercard for Junto in a way regardless. So that's why I do expect him. That fight should be happening around May time. We should have confirmation on that on Saturday after they did the face-off with both guys. Next Saturday when they have the face-off. But yeah, so that's what we got in store right now. Both of those guys could be lined up to fight each other, but regardless, masterful performance. Both guys absolutely went to war. Another big fight that went down on that card, Rene Santiago. He defeated Kyosuke Takami by split decision, 113, 115, 116, 112, 117, 111. Santiago also defeated Iwata earlier this year as the underdog in that fight. He was one of the biggest underdogs in the entire year. Then was the underdog against Takami. Pulled off both those upsets over this past year. And all I can say is this man is now a unified world champion. He has had a phenomenal year. Two of the biggest upsets of the calendar year have come in way of Rene Santiago. He is now a unified world champion heading into 2026. So absolutely phenomenal performance by him. I think he is absolutely an incredible fighter. Honestly, great respect for him for Dominican. He brings another championship there. So that was surprising. Now, we'll add on to this part. For Takami, he is a man who I think will bounce back. Just 23 years of age. He's got a very bright future. Keep an eye on him. But for now, the light belongs to Rene Santiago. Anthony Olascuaga, he defeated Tszyu Kuwahara via 4th round KO. It wasn't competitive, just as I expected. This was never going to be a good fight, but he defends his belt. And I'll be honest, I think Anthony is one of the more underrated fighters in boxing. I know he's obviously in the lower weight classes. I get why people don't necessarily recognize him, but if I'm looking at guys right now that's entertaining, that's talented, he's a guy to keep an eye on. Obviously, an American champion right there. And here's an option I'm going to throw out there. Ricardo Sandoval, Anthony Olascuaga, 2026. That's the unification I want to see have happen. Hopefully, we do get that fight going down. And then, former world champion Tszyu Akui, he went back and returned to the ring. He defeated Vincent Lacar via 3rd round KO. Brilliant performance there, but not much to say. It was kind of just a tune-up fight for himself. So, that's what went down in Japan on Wednesday morning. At the very same time, we transitioned into Australian boxing, and there was another fight card that went down. Tszyu, he made his return. I'll be breaking that down momentarily, but I do want to start with the undercard first here. Middleweight, Callum Peters, he defeated Cody Beacon via 6th round KO. Solid performance there. And then Sam Goodman. Remember, he had a great performance earlier in the year. Obviously bounced back now. He gets a victory against Tyler Blizzard via unanimous decision. Those scorecards read 190, 99-91, and then 100-90 as well. Sam Goodman is the guy who I do think we're going to see back in the big picture next year. I think there's lots of big fights available for himself. I always am entertained by watching him. Great fighter. But here's the man that I really wanted to take some time diving into. That's Tszyu. You guys know my thoughts. Do I think Tszyu has been properly managed over the duration of the past 18, 24 months? Absolutely not. In fact, I think it's actually been a disservice to him. But regardless of what it is, here we are. Tszyu is going to rebuild himself back up again. Catchweight fights with the fight went down against Anthony Velazquez, and he won by unanimous decision. All 3 scorecards, actually 2 scorecards were 190. The other one was 191. But here's the interesting fact about Tszyu. This was a solid performance, but I think we all expected a knockout. Just being honest there. It is what it is, though. Here's what I really want to touch up on. Tszyu did announce after the fight that he plans on moving to middleweight, meaning he's now a 160 fighter moving on from 154. That makes great sense. If you look at 154, it is the best weight class in all boxing. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. From top to bottom, it is the best weight class in boxing. He was not going to become world champion at 154. He just wasn't. There was never going to be an opening for Tszyu to emerge as world champion once again. It was not going to happen. Here at 160, you now jump from the best to what I do firmly believe is the worst weight class in all boxing right now at 160. And it's very appealing to me. If you are Tszyu, the move to 160 is exactly what you need to revive your career right now. You have gone through 3 brutal fights within the past year or so of your life. Very brutal fights. Took a lot out of you. If you are looking at weight classes, you're going from 154, what is my opinion, the best weight class in boxing, to 160. Now, what is probably the worst weight class in boxing? If you're going to look at the champions and contenders, I look at a lot of guys and say, you know what? Tszyu can probably beat a lot of those guys. Now, you look at the world champions. Obviously, for the time being, Janibek holds 2 of the belts. Those will be vacated very shortly. Carlos Adames, Araceli Lore hold the other 2 belts. If you look at the openings for who can become world champion, Tszyu has a pathway to becoming world champ. Those 2 belts will open up with Janibek. Tszyu could easily go in there and become a world champion again. And on top of that, can I throw another option out there? Michael Zarafa. He's fighting his brother in Tszyu in January, I think it is. Early January, mid-January, whatever it is. Those 2 guys will be fighting. Let's say Michael Zarafa wins that fight. All of a sudden, Tszyu Zarafa becomes one of the biggest fights to make in Australian boxing. So 160, all of a sudden, it gives a new bit of energy to Tim Tszyu's career. I think this is long overdue. I would have liked to see Tim Tszyu make this move after the Baumgardner fight, maybe even after the Fundora fight. But I get it. Baumgardner fight would have made more sense. If you are Tim Tszyu, this is what you need to revive your career. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and say Tim Tszyu is all of a sudden one of the best boxers in the world again, nor am I going to say that he has an easy path to world championship status. What I will say is this. The door is now open. If Tim Tszyu is going to revive his career, it was never going to be at 154. That door was slammed shut. But 160, there's some opportunity right there. And so I think if you're Tim Tszyu, this is a perfect move for yourself. 2026, you're going to head in there with a catchweight fight underneath your belt, and 160 now is open for the door for you. We'll see what happens. I think there's some fights he can make there. I think there's some big money fights. But on top of that, in terms of legacy, I think he can become world champion once again at 160. But time will tell. Then on top of that, just going to run through this one real quickly. The Matchroom card featuring a lot of prospects also went down on Wednesday. Just going to give you guys the quick results right here. Giorgio Visioli, he had his very first headlining event. He won by unanimous decision against Joe Haworth. He became the English lightweight champion. Then John Hedges, he defeated Ellis Zorro by unanimous decision. He retained his English cruiserweight title. And I will propose this option. Pat Brown, keep your eye right there. 2 cruiserweight fighters, up-and-coming young prospects from the UK. I could see that fight getting made. There's already been some rumors of that in 2026. Keep your eye on that one right there. Emmanuel Buttigieg, he defeated Victor Iwaska by points 80-72 on all 3 scorecards. Then Taylor Bevan, he defeated Mickey Ellison via TKO in round 6. Adam McCall, the 18-year-old, he defeated Brandon Gerardo Vargas via KO in the second round of that fight. Obviously, this was just a card full of young prospects. A lot of these guys are going to start working themselves up. Visioli and Hedges, you might see them a little bit more on some bigger stages in 2026, but the other guys, all working prospects. So just wanted to kind of run through those results real quickly for you guys. Then the last fight preview or recap I'm going to give you guys for tonight's show is the ProBox TV card. It just went down, wrapped up about 2 hours ago. And let me say this. If y'all missed that fight card, go find a way to run it back. I think it's still available on YouTube on the ProBox channel. That was the best ProBox card of the entire year. I mean, you talk top to bottom. This fight card was phenomenal. Now, the main event was Ramon Cardenas. If you guys are not familiar with the name, he is the guy that dropped Noah Inoue in May. Save that weekend, if you recall. He knocked out Eric Ayala in round 5. And that was beautiful. He stunned him in round 3. A brutal knockdown, I should say. Not stunned him. Brutal knockdown. And then he bounces back. Round 5 gets the finishing touch. And what Ramon Cardenas did in that fight was masterful. This is a man who I think is extremely underrated. We saw that. If you were not aware of that, what he did against Noah Inoue was not just a fluke. This man has proven himself time and again, and I think we saw it this weekend where he's now setting himself up for a potential big 2026. So keep your eye on Ramon Cardenas. One fight I will throw out there, Shabazz Masad. Those two guys could fight each other and possibly even line each other up to go fight for a world championship in 2026. Keep your eye. That's the fight I think they're going to try making right there. So just keep your eye on that one. Then in the co-main event, Olympic gold medalist. He kept his belt. That is Herbert Cohen-Saiso. He went the distance and earned the decision victory to remain the WBO Latino middleweight champion. Then marvelous Mike-Juan Williams. He broke his opponent's will after 3 rounds. He ended up winning the fight. His opponent did not come out of the corner in round 4. Another one, and this was incredible. If you guys have not seen this fight, go run it back. Joe Shawan, Showtime James, he ended up defeating Martinez. But this fight featured both guys getting hurt, including a rare double knockdown. Go look it up. I have it on my X page. Also, you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. But both guys got knocked down in round 3, if I'm not mistaken. That fight was very entertaining. And then we also had Marlon Harrington. He ended the year with potentially one of the best KOs you will see all year long. It was one of those that reminded me a lot of Brian Norman Sasaki. He turned the wrong way, ran right into the punch, and that man was knocked out. So that was also a very entertaining fight as well to watch. But I would actually encourage you, if you have not seen the ProBox TV fight card that went down this weekend, or that went down earlier today, go watch it. It was phenomenal. By far the best ProBox TV card. It's free. It's on YouTube. Go check it out because that fight card was phenomenal. All right. With that being said, out of everything that's discussed, who made the biggest statement over the past week so far? Which of those fights stood out the most to you? Let me know in the chat. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on that. But it's time to transition now into a fight preview. Obviously, we're now, what are we now? About 20 hours out from Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on this card. And before I do so, let me know your prediction in the chat. I want to know, do you guys think, who do you think is going to win this fight and in what round? Now, I'll give you guys my thoughts on this. if I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, I think obviously Anthony Joshua's going to win this fight. I'm going to say a few different aspects here. First of all, some of the rules refresh you. It is at heavyweight. Anthony Joshua made his weight cut. He weighed in at 243.4 pounds, while Jake Paul weighed in at 216.6 pounds. AJ had to get under 245. He did just that. Also, it's only going to be an 8-round fight, 3 minutes in each round. So that's another interesting fact right there. Now, here's the deal. A lot of people out there do think this fight's rigged. A lot of people put these stipulations in there. And I'll be very clear on that. I've said it time and again. I don't think this fight's going to be rigged. There is too much on the line for Anthony Joshua. And I'm going to refresh you guys on this. Anthony Joshua was always going to fight a bum in his return. It was always going to happen, whether that was on the November 22nd card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, or it was going to be against Jake Paul. He was going to fight a bum on the last second notice, whatever it was, he's going to go out there and annihilate. He just wanted to get some ring rust off of him and get back in the ring. All that's happening is he's fighting Jake Paul, which, when you talk about heavyweight fighters, he certainly is a bum in that regard. He is going to go out there and he might try to last 2, 3, 4 rounds simply because of this factor. Anthony Joshua has an entirely new corner around him. The whole corner with Ben Davison is now removed. He's moving over to Alexander Usyk's team. And if you're moving with Usyk's team, what does that mean for yourself? Well, that means that you're going to be a lot more fundamentally sound. Ben Davison's all on power. He was trying to go for the knockout, and that's why I think he actually got caught in the Deontay Dubois fight. It works for AJ, but his biggest weakness has always been fundamentals and skills. He's going to go with Usyk and work on that aspect right now. That's what I see happening in this fight. I think we're going to get to a position where AJ might go 2, 3, 4 rounds simply to get some ring rust off of him and work on his craft and get better. That's what I see happening in this fight. Now, obviously, could AJ go out there and knock Jake Paul, spark lights out in round 1, first 10 seconds of the fight? Absolutely. But I do think he's going to carry him a little bit to work on his craft. That's my personal prediction. But regardless, Anthony Joshua is going to knock Jake Paul out. If he does not, there's 2 ways this does not happen. 1, well, we will have to look into it. Maybe it is rigged and I was wrong, and I'll admit that. Number 2, Jake Paul is going to run around like a lot of boxers we've seen this year. And let me just throw this out there. Would it be the first time that we have seen a boxer run around the ring for an entire fight? No. So just throwing it out there, it is possible. But regardless of what happens, hats off to Jake Paul. If he actually steps foot in that ring, I am going to give the man props. I've said that since the time I got announced. Even from the time it was rumored, I said I'll give Jake Paul props. If he steps in that ring, hats off to the man. And we'll see what happens inside that ring. But I do think AJ will go out there, take care of business, and he will be victor. And I want to add this one other aspect. Or actually 2 more aspects. Anthony Joshua, he needs to win this fight. If you are AJ, you have an outline for 2026 currently in the works. This fight is a massive payday for yourself. Get the bag, and you move on. You're not going to fumble that bag because this is not the only bag he's looking forward to. He has a bag to go out there and fight in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in early 2026, rumored for either February or March. And then if he comes out clean in that fight and wins it, he's going to go out to fight Tyson Fury in most likely Wembley Stadium. Those are some big fights with a lot of money. You're not going to fumble those bags just to go screw around with Jake Paul. So you have to realize this is a lot on the line right now. Anthony Joshua's already been a part of some of these gimmicky fights, if you will, with the Francis Ngannou situation. He didn't go light on that guy, so I don't think he's going to go light on this situation either. Jake Paul is probably going to get sparked out early in this fight. Anthony Joshua needs to do it, and it's all business. Now, I will say this, hopefully and prayerfully, Jake Paul makes that okay, because we're talking about a man who has never taken a punch by the level of an Anthony Joshua, let alone in a boxing ring. Things could go sideways, so hopefully all is well, but I do think AJ will get that knockout. Can I throw this hypothetical to you guys, though? It is boxing. I will never say somebody has a 100% chance of winning a fight because anything can happen when you step foot in a ring. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I know it sounds crazy, but could you imagine Jake Paul knocking out Anthony Joshua? I know it's not going to probably happen, but in the hypothetical world, if Jake Paul did knock Anthony Joshua out, we are talking about potentially one of the most significant, historic, and famous knockouts we've ever seen. It would be a true David and Goliath situation. I'm not saying it's going to happen, nor do I think it's even likely, but if Jake Paul did find a way to knock Anthony Joshua out, and it's been done before. We've seen AJ get knocked out. His last fight, we saw it happen. It will go down as one of the most famous knockouts in the history of boxing. Just throw it out there. Don't put money on that. I'm not saying that's going to happen because it's probably not. I'm just throwing it out there that if that were to happen, we would be in for a knockout that will legitimately break the internet. I see some comments in the comment section. Let me hop over real quick, pull this up on the show for you guys. Let's see what we got right here. All right, let's see right here. Appreciate you tuning in first and foremost. Let's see what we got in the comment section. If AJ just doesn't spark Jake Paul, then it is an exhibition fight. So I think I know what you mean right there. I think you're more so saying it's a rig type fight because either way it is a pro fight. So we're gonna get that. But I see what you mean. I do agree with that. If AJ doesn't knock him out, there is going to be questions. Now, I do think he's going to knock him out. The only hypothetical I threw out there was, I mean, we've seen guys in boxing run around the ring for an entire fight. All he has to do is for 8 rounds. If that's what he's doing, people will be very disappointed, upset. But I'm just saying we have seen it. Obviously, we know some guys. Ryan Garcia did it. We've seen Devin Haney do it, right? We've seen guys do it before. So just throwing it out there, not saying it's possible, but that could be there. No, I can't, but that won't happen. I would believe Tank would have KO'd Jake Paul. I like this, actually. Thanks for bringing this point up. That is an interesting thought right there. You know, when we go back to it, I never was a fan of that fight. That would have been an exhibition because you could never have got the fight sanctioned anywhere in the world, or I should say anywhere in America. But that fight right there was more so could have been a possibly rigged fight because of the exhibition status right there. When you have a pro fight exhibition, it does make the legality of the fight when you're signing contracts much different. So that fight could have been more scripted and rigged. Just going to throw that point out there. Do I think Tank could knock Jake Paul out? Sure. Any boxer could knock them out, let alone a man like with Tank's power. But it would have been interesting. The height and size difference was even more significant than Jake Paul and AJ. We were talking about a man in Tank Davis who was 5'4" on a good day. Jake Paul was 6'1". Obviously, Jake Paul probably would have weighed in at 190. I think that was the limit. I forget off the top of my head. Tank fights at 135, very near. So it would have been interesting. I honestly had no appeal to watch that fight. I thought it was a garbage fight. It wasn't entertaining. It was not appealing. The build-up process was not good. So I never was a big fan of that fight whatsoever. But it is interesting. If you think that, obviously it could have happened. Not going to dispute that. Obviously, Tank Davis has power. We're not disputing that. It just would have been very interesting to see what happened there. Like when Mayweather versus Japanese kickboxer. I know what you're talking about right there. Yes, I see what you're saying right there. But at the same time, like I said, the size difference does matter. And I'll always say this, and I get a lot of people will point this out. Jake Paul's not a real boxer. Of course not. Has he gone through the amateur ranks? No. But Jake Paul has sparred. I mean, you look at the camp he had. He fought at first Raymond Forster, Chris Stevenson, and those guys, and then he transitioned over Lawrence Okoli and Frank Sanchez, Jared Anderson. I think that was the camp he had for Anthony Joshua now. He is taking some punches. And so what I will throw out there is would the KO be possible for Tank? Absolutely. Would I have put money on it? Probably not. And the only reason I'm going to say this right now is the size difference. There is weight classes for a reason in boxing. Now, Tank would have been the better boxer. He would have won the fight. Don't get that twisted right there. But what I'm just saying is the knockout opponent, that's just a little bit more difficult division, being that there was essentially a foot gap between the two of them and about, what was this, 75-ish pounds roughly, whatever it is off the top of my head, 65 pounds. That does make a difference, especially when Jake Paul does know how to take a punch. He's fought some big dudes. So that's all I'll say. But obviously, it's a hypothetical. It's never going to happen now. And I think Tank Davis definitely would have won the fight off of points unless Jake Paul somehow knocked him out. But I would have went with Tank Davis regardless in that fight right there. So I do see your point, though. But I do appreciate you for tuning in, man. And I appreciate the comments, though. For everybody else tuning in right now, you guys make sure to smash that likes button on YouTube. I greatly appreciate that. If you guys have any comments or topics or debates, whatever it is, make sure to let me know and hit those up in the chat. Other fights going down on this card tomorrow night on Netflix. Alicia Baumgardner, she's fighting Layla Baumgardner. The WBA, IBF, WBO, super featherweight world titles are all on the line. Alicia, that's what I'm rocking with in this fight. I think she's going to win. I think she's one of the more underrated fighters in women's boxing. And I know she's ranked high. I'm just saying she doesn't necessarily get the respect. And you could say that for women's boxing at large. But I'm glad she gets this platform. She deserves it. I think she's going to do her job tomorrow. Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley. I mean, it is what it is. Two former UFC dudes. I'm not too concerned. They're fighting at cruiserweight, 6 3-minute rounds. There it is. Jamal Harvey, though, this one I love. And if you don't know Jamal Harvey, he was the most talented in a lot of people's eyes Olympic from Team USA in the Olympics in 2024. Now, he took about a year or so to sign with a promotional company. He was on the show a little bit ago. Go check the interview out if you guys have not seen it yet. It's on my YouTube channel. But get to know him. Good dude. He's now made a couple of fights. He's signed most valuable promotions. And him getting to go fight on the main card for MVP is huge for him. This is a very intriguing prospect. I'm excited to see it. He's going to go for 6 3-minute rounds. He's a good prospect. His first big situation for him to go out there and fight on. Go show support. Go watch him. He's a good prospect for USA Boxing. Then the preliminary card. Trinica Johnson, Amanda Galley, they're fighting for undisputed WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO, all are on the line for the bantamweight title. This one, I'm going to go Trinica on this one as well. I think she's going to win the fight. Then Caroline Dubois, who just moved over to MVP, she's also fighting Camila Patana. WBC lightweight title fight is on the line. Then Yokasa Valle, she's returning against Bustillos, WBC minimum weight title fight. And then Avius Griffin, who was signed in Most Valuable Promotion, still is signed, but he was ranked at the top 15 at the time, got knocked out earlier this year, and we'll see how he looks in the bounce back. But this is going to be an 8 rounds for 3 minutes. So that's the fight going down at welterweight. That wraps up your card for tomorrow with Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul. Now, I'll be honest, is it the most anticipated, undercard we've ever had? No. The one against Tank Davis was significantly better. I was more excited for that undercard, but when last second changes happen, you weren't able to get some of the other fights on this undercard. It is what it is. Enjoy it though. Good fight overall, and it'll be entertaining. Obviously the main event is going to be quite the spectacle, so we'll see what happens there. One other fight preview goes down in the overall for Matchroom card. Craig Richards, he's fighting Dan Azeez, light heavyweight fight going down right there. A battle between top 15 type contenders. Then the young prospect at heavyweight, Leo Tang, he's making his return to the ring at heavyweight. This is a man who I am very, very high on. If you guys have not watched him yet, he's obviously a Mosatomo out there from the UK. This is another UK rising heavyweight prospect. Keep your eye on him. Nishant Dev is also returning on this card. Obviously, we've seen him a few times on Matchroom cards. He's coming back to make his final fight of 2025. I like watching him as well. Go check out that interview, which is also on my YouTube channel if you guys have not seen that one yet either. All right. That wraps up the fight previews for what's going to be going down this weekend. And now that leads us to boxing news. All right. This is going to be a big one. I'm going to get some water before we do it, because this is obviously massive news. Never did I expect to see this news actually come to fruition over the past, when I talked to you guys on Monday. But it is indeed Terence Crawford's retired. Now, 1 second. And I want to know your thoughts before we go any further. Is Terence Bud Crawford a top 10 fighter of all time? I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on that, but let me know in the chat. Here's my thoughts. Terence Bud Crawford is no longer going to be boxing, according to himself. He's a 5-division champion, 42-0, 31 knockouts, 3-division undisputed champion. He ends his career with one of the greatest runs when you talk about going from one of the great performances against Earl Spence, 154 champion against Madrimov, and then the moving up 2 weight classes, no weight clauses, none of that in place, to go out there and defeat and have one of the most important, significant wins in boxing history, upsetting Canelo Alvarez, becoming undisputed at 168, and then Bud Crawford rolls off into the sunset. Terence Bud Crawford retiring this way will go down as one of the greatest ways to ever walk away from the sport, from any sport. This is a man who's going out on top. And I don't really care what anybody wants to say. He's not defending his undisputed, blah, blah, blah. This man went through an entire career being blackballed by the boxing media, by the boxing promoters, and everybody. He was mishandled for the majority of his career. He did things his way and got to a place where we look back on time now, and he still managed to have a career, which I do believe belongs in the top 10 all time. This is a bad, bad man. And when we talk about Terence Bud Crawford, I want to add this part as well. This is not just a man who was one of the 10 greatest fighters of all time. He's one of the best men outside of boxing as well. And you put those two things together, and you have this legacy of Terence Bud Crawford that is superior to many other great boxers. I firmly have him within the top 10 all time. Firmly. Maybe as high as number 5. But what Terence Bud Crawford did in his career is something that very few boxers could ever imagine. And then for him to go out on top, I don't blame the man. If you are a boxer going out with all your faculties still in check, and you're going to emerge as a man with one of the greatest runs, his resume, on top of the world, pound for pound number 1, and you're going to sail off into the sunset with a career-high payday while being at that from the Canelo Alvarez fight, how else is there a better way to go out from your sport than that? You talk about all the sports in the history of mankind, he's in the top tier of guys who will go out on their terms. Every athlete dreams of doing what Terence Bud Crawford just did. How can you fault the man for doing that? So hats off to Terence Bud Crawford. Boxing will certainly miss this man. But what a better way to go out. That being said, do I believe that Terence Bud Crawford is actually retired from the sport of boxing? Absolutely not. I would be shocked if we don't ever see Terence Bud Crawford in the ring again, whether that be as an exhibition fight or that be a legitimate fight. Terence Bud Crawford will be back in the ring one day. In fact, I'll go as far as to say this. When you look at boxing, the retired word means pretty much nothing. It has zero significance. We're witnessing right now Tyson Fury, that exact storyline, and he's done this many times. If you're Terence Bud Crawford, what else is there to do? Nothing. Yet, you know you can beat just about anybody that's reasonable fight for yourself. All you need to do is have the right paycheck come across your face, and you can say, you know what? I'm returning to boxing for this fight right here. What could that fight possibly be? Well, let me throw it out there. You don't think Canelo Alvarez wants that rematch? Sure he does. He's been very vocal about that. But what's going to have to happen is Terence Bud Crawford needs a career-defining, generational wealth type payday. I'm talking $100 million plus. Could that happen? Sure. If that check comes across the table, Bud takes it. Let me throw this out there. Jake Paul. Exhibition fight maybe. Why not go after that one? Ilia Topuria, MMA fighter. We've seen Floyd Mayweather do it before with Conor McGregor. That would be a big money fight if Topuria continues to be successful in the UFC. Bud comes back, annihilates the man, and continues to get big paydays. Or maybe one other option. What if at 160, someone somehow unifies the belts and you have a chance to go undisputed now at 160? You don't think that would entice him? Because I know sure as heck Bud Crawford goes out there and whoops up on anybody at 160. So the point being is this. Terence Bud Crawford is likely just going to shut down the idea of boxing for this moment in time. But he's going to have the itch back one day. And if the right payday comes across Terence Bud Crawford's table, I would be shocked to see him not take that offer. So if I were to answer this question, do I think Terence Bud Crawford returns to boxing one day? Absolutely. In fact, I might even add this. I would actually be shocked if Bud Crawford is not back in the boxing ring in some capacity at some point in time. Let me know your guys' thoughts, though. Do you guys think this is true or not? But I will add this, though. I believe that the day Janabek got positive testing for his PEDs was the day that Terence Bud Crawford actually retired. In fact, if you saw the video Bud Crawford posted, it was about a 5-minute video. Obviously had solid video production. My guess is this. Maybe the day or two after the Janabek situation occurred, Bud Crawford got the film group together and said, you know what? We're wrapping this thing up. And here's why. I think there was legitimate interest in Terence Bud Crawford going down to 160 and going for undisputed, or at least unify. Janabek was going to have 2 of the belts. Laura had another one. 3 belts would then be united between 2 guys. Bud Crawford, there's no way in the world Bud was not looking at the opportunity right there and saying, you know what? I want that right there. Of course he would have. Because you don't think Bud would have whooped up on Arsenal Laura or Janabek, whoever won that fight? Of course he would have. Bud is a 10 times better fighter than both those guys. Second of all, both guys would get annihilated by Canelo Alvarez. Of course, Bud Crawford would put a whooping on both of them. Probably would have knocked them both out. Bud would have been inclined to go out there and do that fight. So when Janabek screwed over a lot for his career, yeah, Janabek not only screwed over a fight to go unify, a payday by Premier Boxing Champions, he also screwed over possibly getting a shot at Terence Bud Crawford. So congratulations, Janabek. You threw your career away all for some PEDs to go fight a 40-year-old fighter, the oldest world champion in all of boxing. One of the dumbest moves I've ever seen. But I think that actually was the day that Bud retired. Can I bring this other point up to you guys? The future of USA boxing is kind of up in the balance right now. For the first time in a while, USA had the top guy in boxing. Terence Bud Crawford was number 1 in pound for pound. Now Usyk, in a way, that whole combination right there is, back in the top debate. And Bud Crawford's out of there. Obviously, talk about Bam Rodriguez. He's certainly in the mix. Obviously, Mexican-American heritage, whatever. But then you throw in Shakur Stevenson. He's obviously somewhere in the realm there. David Benavidez, Mexican-American, same thing right there. But we can still count him to a certain extent. There's kind of this drought again. Who could be the next American world champion and pound for pound king? Now, I'm sure it will emerge, and I talked about on Monday's show, Shakur, I do believe, has a shot at that. I think he actually has the best chance of doing it in the closest near future because of the Tszyu fights and then possibly Conor Ben or whatever the case may be. But where does American boxing go from now? From the post-Floyd Mayweather era and before that, we had endless times where the number 1 fighter in the world was almost always American. Then we went through a little drought. Bud Crawford reemerged, and you have to wonder, who is the next guy? And so I'm curious. Who do you guys think is the next pound-for-pound great from the USA? Is it Shakur? Is it Bam Rodriguez? I'd say Shakur is probably the best chance, but for the time being, America's not going to have number 1 on pound-for-pound list for quite some time. Here is the good news. For the first time in multiple years, 168 is finally broken open. Canelo Alvarez had all the belts for a very long time. Bud Crawford came up and took up all those belts, and now the belts are all open. Let me break this down for you guys. Here's the prediction, or here's the current picture for the for the super middleweight division. IBF, the number one contender, is currently Ulysses Iglesias. Number 3 is Canelo Alvarez. Number 4 is Jaime Munguia. For the WBO, number 1 contender is currently Canelo Alvarez. Number 2 is SchuZ, and number 3 is Pacheco. While the WBC, their interim is Christian Billy. He's going to be promoted most likely to full champion. Then, number 1 contender is Canelo Alvarez. Number 2 is SchuZ. And then you go down to the WBA, and the interim champion currently there is Jose Amando Resendez, who I believe will be promoted to full champion. Then number 1 contender is Canelo Alvarez, and then Bektemir, who obviously had the great performance against Darius Fulgham earlier this year. So that's the landscape currently in play as all the belts are now fragmented at 168. Here's what I'm going to throw out to you guys. I'm excited. 168, for a long time, we've looked at and said this talent. Don't get me wrong, I love Lester Martinez and Christian Billy, fight of the year candidate on the Bud Crawford Canelo undercard. I love Hamza Shiraz, great fighter. Throw in Caleb Plant and Charlo. They're still in the mix. Obviously, the guys I listed already that's in there right now. And Canelo, he's not going anywhere. 168 all of a sudden becomes a very intriguing weight class. Where 2026, we're heading into it, and it's one of the most intriguing weight classes in boxing simply because who will emerge? I look at Canelo Alvarez, and I would say he's the best man at 168 personally. I would view that as that at this current moment in time. But what we've been wondering for so long, if you recall, was we were all asking, Canelo, can you please fight the good guys? We didn't want Edgar Berlanga. We didn't really want Jaime Munguia either. And yet he kept fighting them. Well, now Canelo, if he wants those belts and wants to try becoming undisputed once again, he's going to have to go through the thick of it. He's going to have to go through the guys that are tough. Hamza Shiraz's. That would be a fight I'd love to see. Christian and Billy, who we all know is going to put the pressure on him. You're going to look at so many different guys at 168 right now that are intriguing fights. So all of a sudden, those fights we kind of wanted from Canelo Alvarez going back, a year or two ago, obviously we wanted David Benavidez. That was never happening. But all those fights that were on the door are now open again. Because Canelo Alvarez, for the first time in a long time, will have to work for those world championships. I'm sure the WBC is the route he's going to go, but does he want to go with Christian and Billy? That's to be determined. So all of a sudden, those fights we really wanted to see Canelo Alvarez fight in, they're going to possibly happen once again. And I think that's great for the sport of boxing because we've all wanted Canelo to fight some better opponents. I mean, tell me, would you not be inclined to see Christian and Billy and Canelo Alvarez fight each other? I know I would. Because I know for a fact that Billy will not back down from Canelo Alvarez. And oftentimes when Canelo fights somebody likes to exchange like that, we see some of the best versions of Canelo Alvarez as well. So that's a fight I hope they make. Hamza Shiraz, another one with Turki Al-Sheikh ties. I could easily see that fight getting made for September or something along those lines. The point is this. All of a sudden, 168, which has been this kind of a dragging on weight class of all the belts being tied up and not a lot of fun happening, now it becomes a very exciting weight class heading into 2026. I'm hyped for it, but let me know in the chat, who do you guys think emerges? If you were to make your pound-for-pound rankings, so to speak, at 168, or even just your 168 rankings, who do you think is the top guy right now? Bud Crawford's off the table. Canelo Alvarez obviously is there still. Who is the top guy at 168? We'll see what happens there. But that's what I got in terms of Bud Crawford. Obviously, we lost a phenomenal fighter. Absolutely great person as well. We'll see where we go from here, though. Lyndon Arthur has vacated his European title. He just won it, and he's now vacating it. So it makes you... I'll say that thought for a second. But let me just give you guys the news first. Lyndon Arthur has relinquished his European light heavyweight title that he won against Brad Rhea last month in Manchester. Interesting. Now, Luca Diorci, he has now been ordered as the mandatory challenger. He's getting his opportunity to fight for the European belt next. But Lyndon Arthur, you become European champion, a very successful and a well-established, a belt right there. The only belt Lyndon Arthur is probably ever going to win. And now he relinquishes it just a month later. It makes you wonder, what could he be doing? Because if you go with the EBU, you're going to be mandated to fight certain guys to defend the belt. But now he's relinquishing it. Now, he was on the show a little bit ago. Go check out that interview if you've not seen that one yet. He wants big fights. That's what he said on the show. He said, yes, the belt was cool. Yes, he wanted to become the European champion, but he wants big fights. He's a man who's already fought the likes of a Dimitri Bivol. He's fought some great opponents. Who could that big fight be? Well, let me throw out one. Anthony Yarde, Joshua Buatsi. Both those fights could obviously come to fruition, and I would not be shocked to see them, but either way, because of the fact that he is, relinquishing that belt, I would not be shocked to see him go out there and get a big fight in replacement. Undefeated contender, Javier Herrera. 17-0, 15 KOs. He will take on Ricardo Nunez for the vacant WBC interim 135-pound title on January 10th. What card's going down there? Yes, that's going to be on the card of Caballel and Niba, the heavyweight showdown going down in Germany. So this fight, I'm glad it got made. It was the rightful fight that the WBC was supposed to make. Then they did that bogus with Oshaki Foster and Stephen Kobe Fulton, and they promoted those guys to become interim. Then Fulton decided not to take that fight or take the belt, or Foster decided not to take that fight or that belt and move back to the 130. Confusing situation. But yes, the rifle fight's not being made once again. Undercard, and that fighter would then be the mandatory for Shakur Stevenson. So just keep that in mind right there. All right. I did a recap of the Jai Opetaia performance on Monday's show. Now I want to give you guys a matchup that must happen. If you are Jai Opetaia's team, you need to do whatever it takes to go fight Noel Mikaelien. There is no exception no more. No excuses. This fight must happen. Now I get it. You're going to have to deal with Don King. And I get it. That is a pain in the butt. And that is a man who does not want to make fights and screws over his fighters. Just keeping it blunt. But if you are Jai Opetaia's team, if you have to get Turki Al-Sheikh involved or whoever involved, do whatever it takes to make sure you get that unification. Because if you can get that unification, that leads us to give us a glimmer of hope that by the end of 2026, an undisputed champion at cruiserweight will be crowned. Why? Because 2 belts will be in possession by either Jai Opetaia, it will be Jai, just to make it clear, or Noel Mikaelien, sure, whatever. He's going to get knocked out. And then the winner of Zurdo and David Benavidez. And together, you then form one of the biggest, most anticipated fights of the calendar year in 2026. So, if you are Jai Opetaia's team, do whatever it takes to fight Noel Mikaelien. And we all know how that fight's going to go. Jai will knock him out. It is going to be an easy win. He is the best man at cruiserweight, not debatable. And when you talk about Noel Mikaelien, respectable opponent, good man. But guess what? Jai Opetaia is a bad, bad man who will knock him out and hopefully get those belts unified. So the biggest hindrance is Don King. If you have to get Turki Al-Sheikh involved, get him involved and make the fight happen. We need Jai versus Noel Mikaelien to go down in 2026. Make that unified fight go down. We have some more clarity now on Conor Benn's next fight. His manager, Keith Connolly, he revealed that Conor's next fight will be against Ryan Garcia if, in fact, Ryan Garcia defeats Mario Barrios in February. He said this: we expect to fight Ryan Garcia if he beats Barrios in the first half of next year. All right. All I will say is this. What belt is this going to be fought for? Well, I think we already know. WBC. Okay. And what other belt? Never mind. I've already ripped in the WBC enough recently. But yes, the WBC. Rewarding 2 guys with a big brand to go fight for world championships. Most on-par thing for the WBC ever get set. It is what it is. The fight will be a great build-up process. It'll be entertaining to see it happen. But it is what it is. That's what the WBC does these days. We have Boots Ennis fight news as well. John Ennis and Virgil Ortiz fight is reportedly in major jeopardy. Now, before I read the report, let me make this clear. At this point in time, I don't know what the heck is going on. This whole combination situation with Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz is a train wreck. I don't know who to blame. Is it Matchroom? But Matchroom is making great fights. Or is it Golden Boy who, well, they kind of slack on some good fights. I don't know what's at fault. All I know is this manager that Virgil Ortiz has got is a pain in the butt. He keeps making a bunch of commotions. This fight's not getting made at the current moment in time. And I don't know what's going on. So here we are. Here's the report. Virgil Ortiz's manager, once again running his mouth, posted on Instagram saying to DAZN executives directly, told DAZN executives directly they can't force Virgil Ortiz to fight John Ennis due to contractual obligations. Okay. Does DAZN have to push you to make the fight happen? That's the question I'll ask you. You're saying that you're mad at DAZN for pushing him to make the fight. Why does DAZN even have to get involved here? If you are Virgil Ortiz's manager, you should be looking at what's best for your client there. And we all know the best financial and the biggest fight for his career is Boots Ennis. So what makes me think about the situation is he ducking Boots Ennis? Because it makes no sense. If you are trying to make this fight happen, DAZN, of course, they want the fight to happen. Obviously, everybody wants the fight to happen. It's going to happen in Las Vegas. It needs to happen there. And it's going to be on DAZN. But if you are Virgil Ortiz's manager and his team, what are we doing here? You should have that fire inside of you to say, you know what? We don't care what everybody else thinks. We know what the best fight is. It's Bruce Ennis. The best payday, the best fight to make, in all of boxing, at least one of them. Go make the fight happen. Can this manager of Virgil Ortiz stop screwing around? I feel like all this man wants to do is comment on posts, tweet things out, and put stuff on his stories more than actually do his job. And it's getting ridiculous. This is the shenanigans that need to get cut out of boxing. We're sick of it. Nobody's here to watch the Virgil Ortiz manager show. What we are here to do is watch the fight happen. We don't care about who this manager dude is. Go get your job done. Make the best fights happen. Stop screwing around. This is the crap that needs to get cut out of boxing. And we're sick of it. And that's why I say, when we talk about the whole Dana White TKO, Zuffa boxing situation, the only reason I'm optimistic about this is that we know there's going to be structure. This bogus manager bullcrap that happens in boxing, it doesn't happen in the UFC because of structure and a business structure. If we could see that happen in boxing, it would be for the better because we don't need this stupid bogus stuff happening. We don't. Make the fight happen. Stop screwing around because at this point, I don't know what to believe. I don't trust any of it. And all I know is that I want the fight to happen. I know both guys are going to get paid a lot of money for that fight to happen. So make it happen. Stop screwing around, guys. Another one. Now, we are about 8 days out from the mega Japanese card going down in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And this fight now, unfortunately, the card I should say, took a hit. Jaza Dickens was supposed to defend his world championship against Tsutsumi Tsutsumi, make sure I clarify that. It is now off due to a cut on Hayata Tsutsumi in sparring. WBA junior lightweight champion Jaza Dickens, he was going to defend his belt on December 27th, but it's now been postponed. Unfortunate news. I thought Tsutsumi was going to have a chance of becoming world champion. Jaza Dickens now gets to hold on to that belt a little bit longer there. It is what it is, but I will throw this out there now. The options now open up. Obviously, this was a turkey-backed fight. Guys are going to get paid well for this fight right here. And Tsutsumi lost his opportunity. Now, I think he'll get it back one day in the future. But what I don't think is going to happen is he's not going to get a rematch with Jaza Dickens because Jaza Dickens might have just got a better payday, or at least maybe near it. Here's what happened on social media. WBC Super Featherweight Champion Oshaki Foster has called out WBA Super Featherweight Champion Jaza Dickens for a unified bout in the UK. Here's why this is very intriguing to myself. Oshaki Foster, he could have went the 135 route, kept the interim belt, and challenged Shakur Stevenson, or maybe did something else. He relinquished that belt, went back to 130, and then his manager, he was commenting on one of my posts on Instagram, and he said, you know what? He didn't want the Raymond Ford fight. Sucks. I want that fight to happen. It is what it is. He said it's not going to happen. So what did he say? He said he wants to go for the other champions. My comment back to him was, well, none of the fights are open. So what is he going to do? Well, we now have that answer. Jaza Dickens. And I think what we're going to see have happen now is Jaza Dickens versus Oshaki Foster going down in the UK. Obviously, Oshaki Foster, while he became a much bigger name now because of his performance on the Pitbull and Lamont Roach card, he's not a mega draw yet. But if you put him in the UK, he all of a sudden becomes a much bigger draw. Why? They love boxing a lot more. And Jaza Dickens, he's a big draw in the UK as well. So this is a fight I do think we're going to have happen, a unification in 2026 in the UK. I could see it happen. What did he fight? Early December, maybe April, or maybe even March. I could see the fight going down out there, but we'll see what happens. Here's what I'm going to propose, though. Is it a main event? Possibly. It could very well be. But could it also be a undercard or co-main event for another big fight? And why do I suggest that? Well, my next segment is this. Devin Haney reportedly has now reposted Louis Crocker's call out via Instagram. A unification unifying the IBF and WBO belts at welterweight. In the suggested place, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium has been mentioned as the possible place, which holds 62,000 people. Obviously, it's where Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. just fought. This is a fight I want to see. If you are Devin Haney, you're going to make money regardless of where you fight at. Your name is big enough. You are one of the probably top 10, debatably, names in all boxing. If you want to go make a legacy at 147, go clean up those belts and become undisputed. Devin Haney is the best man at 147. Nobody's stopping that man from becoming undisputed. So if you are Devin Haney, Louis Crocker's right there. I personally want to see Devin Haney versus Louis Crocker, not from an entertainment standpoint, but to see Devin Haney clean up the belts. I think Devin Haney easily wins this fight against Louis Crocker. In fact, it's not even competitive. But if you're Devin Haney, going out to the UK, growing your brand even more, playing or fighting inside of a stadium, and you get to go out there and unify belts, is the perfect fight for Devin Haney. It's not even a competitive fight. Devin Haney easily wins that fight by decision. However, I will suggest this as well. when I just talked about the Oshaki Foster Dickens fight, this is what I was referring to. Put those two guys, Devin Haney-Crocker, USA, UK, and another USA, UK fight, Oshaki Foster and Jonathan Dickens, as the undercard. That would be a phenomenal card to make. Could see it happening possibly next year in 2026. But yes, if we're looking at fights to get made, Devin Haney, Lewis Crocker, that's the route to go. I think it makes perfect sense. Obviously, a massive opportunity for Devin Haney to become unified. And on top of that, you fight in the UK in a stadium with that holds 62,000 would be a great place for him to go fight at. Dan Rafael, he made a tweet yesterday, I think it was now, saying this. There was a deadline for the IBF heavyweight eliminator between Frank Sanchez and Roger Torres. And surprise, surprise, once again, no deal has been made. So the IBF will now schedule a purse bid. PBC sees no value in the fight, going off the FA bids, and Top Rank has no TV deal. So what's going to happen? Well, we've got no idea. So somebody's going to have to essentially pick this fight up. PBC doesn't want the fight, and on top of that, Top Rank doesn't have a TV deal. So why is this going to be a tough fight to make? Well, you're going to need a TV deal in place, obviously, and it's going to have to be someone outside of the promoters of these two fighters. So who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully it gets made because I think Roger Torres, this is the fight he needs in his career at this point in time. I think it's a great opportunity for him as well, but who knows? This whole Frank Sanchez situation has been an absolute train wreck and disaster. Hopefully we have clarity at the heavyweight division sometime soon, but I think we're going to have to go to purse bids, and it probably will be a little bit messy making this fight happen. So we'll see what happens right there. On top of that, let me add one more stipulation to this. Also, in terms of this fight getting made, there are good odds, and this is from, I think it was Bug Williams that made this point. He said that both these fighters will have to probably fight for less than the contractual minimum. So we'll see what happens there. There will have to be a sacrifice to fight for this position, the title eliminator, but who knows what happens? That's just what's in store right now. Final thing on today's show. Now, if you guys do have any more comments or topics, make sure to leave it in the chat, and I'll make sure to address them as well. But with that being said, though, let's get to the final topic that I've set for today's show. Former bantamweight champion Ryusuke Nishida, he has announced his return to the ring in an IBF Super Bantamweight Eliminator against Brian Mercado Vasquez on February 15th. Big fight right here. I'm a very big fan of Nishida. This is a man who looked phenomenal at 118. He fought in a unification earlier this year against Junto Nakatani. Now, he fought Junto Nakatani, a pound-for-pound top 10 guy. He didn't look the best. He was competitive for the first few rounds, but he got beat down, got the fight stopped, all those good things. I think this man is a very talented fighter. He's moving up now to 122. Keep your eye on this man. And here's the big deal. The winner of this fight will become the mandatory challenger for Naoya Inoue. That's huge. Why do I say that? Well, essentially it is Inoue at this moment in time. Inoue and Junto will be fighting for Undisputed in Japan if they both win next weekend. So essentially, you could have a rematch with Junto Nakatani, or Inoue moves to 126, relinquishes the belts. A lot of opportunities here, but regardless of what it is, the winner of this fight would have a massive, massive fight in store for themselves, awaiting the winner of this fight. So we'll see what happens there. But yes, Nishida does have another shot at becoming world champion, and honestly becoming two weight class world champion there as well. That is all I've got for you guys on today's show, though. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys have a blessed Friday. Enjoy the fights that go down this weekend. I will be back live on Monday before Christmas, giving a recap of everything that goes down this weekend. So have a great rest of you guys' day. I don't know if it's night, day, whatever it is. Enjoy the rest of you guys' day, evening, whatever that is. God bless you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will see you guys back live on Monday. May God bless you guys all. And with that being said, SchuZ is out. God bless y'all.